a recording of our session will be live, and recordings from the other sessions this week will be on there as well. Okay, let me make sure that our recording is working. Okay, it is, so we're good. All right, continuing on. This is where we're headed. Oh, I skipped one, really important. We're all Virginians, and so we're in this together. We're all trying to serve all of our students. We do have some people from around the country who have joined, and I think we have some people from around the world who have signed up as well. So we welcome you, but as Virginians, as Americans, as just citizens of the world, we're in this together, and together we're going to be able to come out on the other end stronger than we were before. I truly believe that. So these are our agreements, how we're going to be moving forward together, and this is where we're going. We're going to start by looking at why we need community. And I had some, I reached out to some of the smartest experts that I know in the field, and we'll see some of their resources and reflections on that question in just a moment. We're going to look at Flipgrid and Google Meet. So that's kind of the structure that we're headed in. The very first thing that we're going to start off with, though, is community. And I've heard it mentioned a million times by the principal where I serve, that we can't do the Bloom stuff until we take care of the Maslow stuff. And I hope that in your school districts, you're hearing that, and that as we're serving our students, that we're thinking through that. Right now, there are a lot of kiddos who, when it comes to the physiological and just basic safety, there are really big challenges going on right now. So being able to be empathetic and, again, to offer that grace to them is incredibly important before we start getting into the academic side of things. I think that you guys offer safety and definitely love and belonging to our students. I know the schools are doing a great job of being able to serve food, so we're hitting some of those physiological ones as well. But this session is really targeted on that love and belonging part and the safety that you provide through the community that you have in your classroom and the relationships that I know that you've fostered throughout the school year so far. But on slide 7, I have a link in here about what the experts are saying about why we need community. So what I'd like you to do is please click on that link, and it's going to open up in a Padlet. Some of you are like, oh yeah, this looks familiar. And in the past few days, a lot of you have responded in here about why we need community and what the value is. And so what I'd like you to do at this point is, if you haven't added anything yet, please click the pink button in the bottom right, and you can add a post. If you have already contributed, take this time to look over what other people have said. And in about 3 minutes, we'll come back together and share out why we need community. So go ahead, take some time to do this, and then we will come back together in just a moment. About 1 more minute to contribute to our Padlet, and then we'll come back together to share out, talk through some of these ideas and so forth.
Can you put the link back up?
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to put it in the chat. Okay, so as people are still contributing, if you would like, I invite you to unmute your speaker and we can hear from a few different people about either your own response or as you look to other people's, what themes you might have seen or continuity that might be existing in there. And I know we have 74 or 72 of you in here, so I can go through and randomly call on some of you, or if any volunteers would like to step up and be able to answer, I'd love that.
I think this community is especially important to learn how to do this distance learning.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was gonna.
Go ahead, Maya.
I was gonna say that a community offers different opinions and people from different places, so we learn from each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, social learning. Go ahead.
A community offers a safe place for people to grow as individuals and to support each other in sort of like a family kind of way, in a very caring.
Thank you. Someone had a header, middle school teacher in Virginia, put community, a sense of belonging, a place to be and feel safe, a place to grow. And as I was looking through it earlier, I really liked that. And then also put, that person also put taking risk and learning from our mistakes and from one another. Thank you for contributing that. Anyone else want to, let's hear from maybe two more people about either what you added yourself or some of the ideas that you saw in here.
Also think that when we have community times like this, when there's so much uncertainty, we can lean on each other, and it's good to know that you're not the only one struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. Last week, I was invited by a teacher at the school that I support to sit in on his first video conference class with his students. And it was the first time he'd seen his kiddos for about 5 weeks. And he said it was just so good to see their faces. And the kids who, it wasn't required, but the kids who did show up, he was pretty surprised by who was there and just how cathartic it was for both of them. And that may not even be the right word, but just a sense of relief, a sense of this is how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a part of your life. I'm supposed to be able to see you on a regular basis. And I think all of that is a part of what we're talking about today. So thank you all for adding those great ideas in there. I'm not going to take this Padlet down, so you can continue to check it out. In 2 weeks, when I run this PD again, I'm going to keep your answers in there because there's some phenomenal ideas, and they'll just continue to add to it as well. So we're going to head back to, if you want to head back to just watching my screen for the next couple moments, that'll be great. And then you guys will have some time to explore these tools in a minute. The first tool that we're going to be looking at today, well, I guess we already looked at Padlet, but the second tool that we're going to be looking at today is Flipgrid. And we have two little videos that we're going to watch about Flipgrid. This first one is just an overview of its social learning and looking through that. I am going to come back and mute all of my microphones. All right, so we're going to watch this one and then one other short video, so about 2 minutes total, about what Flipgrid is.
Provide inclusion for my deaf students.
I have a voice. I have a voice. I have a voice. Flipgrid to be an inclusive opportunity for all students to share their voice.
And we are so proud to build an environment that is accessible, simple, and fun.
And I'm so proud to be on our mission to empower every voice.
So as that video ends, I will invite one or two people to, you can unmute yourself at this point. And if you could just tell me, like, what stood out to you from that 1 minute video that we watched about Flipgrid?
Hi, Adam.
Hi.
I liked that it could reach, it seemed like it could reach a variety of students.
Yeah, their goal that they want to empower every voice. How amazing is that? Cool.
Yeah, Adam, and I really felt everybody was smiling. It was fun. It was, it was interactive, but it had personality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it allows, to me, it makes it a lot more personal than if we do a traditional discussion board post where we just see the text that our students are doing to respond to something. There's certainly value in even having that level of engagement from our students.
It's a one, and I'm like, really not very happy.
So there is certainly value in being able to have even text-based interaction, but being able to move it up to video makes it even stronger, in my opinion. So some other features that we have in here, in general, think of Flipgrid as a threaded video discussion board, and we'll see some different examples of how teachers are doing that in just a minute. Built-in screen recording. It has it's secure, it is free and full of accessibility tools. Flipgrid is owned by Microsoft, and they have made pledges that it will always be free. No hidden different levels of access. It's just straight up free for educators. So that's awesome. Continuing on, our next slide, how do we get started and what does it look like as an educator? In a moment, we're gonna head to Flipgrid and we'll actually walk through how to sign up and how to do some of these directions. Before we do that, there is a short educator, how do you put these things together? And it will introduce us to some different terms that we're gonna use in Flipgrid. It can get confusing with their new terms, so please watch this, pay attention to what it means to have a grid, what it means to have a topic, and things like that.
Head over to Flipgrid.com and create a free Flipgrid account with your Microsoft or Google email address. Once you've signed up, let's create your first grid. Your grid is your class, so I'll name mine 6th grade reading. Select a grid type. I'll select school email, which will allow my students to access the grid using their school email address. If you're teaching younger learners without emails, you can choose the student ID option. Students do not need to create an account. They will use this code to access the grid. You can personalize it, so I'm going to make mine Remote Reflection. Limit access to the grid by entering your school emails. Enter everything after the @ symbol. Add multiple emails for students and educators. Now that your grid is created, you'll see that we have automatically created a discussion prompt to help introduce Flipgrid to your learning community. Let's make a new discussion prompt. In Flipgrid, we call those topics. You can add links, videos, or anything you want your learners to view prior to recording a video response. Or hop on over to the Disco library where there are thousands of ready-to-use topic templates available. Now that you have created your topic, you are ready to share with your learner. Share the link or code with your learning community. This is how your students will access Flipgrid and start posting videos. For step-by-step student instructions and more resources to help you use Flipgrid, check out the links in the description below.
So we will take that same pause as we did before to allow you to just reflect on what you saw in that short video, whether or not you thought it looked simple, or if you feel supported, or just like what stood out to you from that educator video.
I like that there was basically a forum that in community that had things for you to pull from in case this is new to you, so you don't get overwhelmed.
Me too, Melody. I love that, being able to use the Disco library. And we do have a slide on that in just a little bit. So we will definitely touch on how you can remix what other educators have done. Anyone else want to just real quick share?
I like that you can link it into, or you can send it to Google Classroom.
I was hoping you'd mention that. Absolutely. So both tools that we're looking at today do play very well with Google Classroom. I know we have a lot of Google Classroom fans out there, so we will see how those play together. We're going to transition now, so I'm going to go back and remute our mics. And so from now, you can either type in into a new tab, flipgrid.com, or you can click the link that's on our slides. Either way will take you to that page. And here we are on Flipgrid's website. So what we're going to do is go ahead and click the blue button in the top right, Educator Sign Up, if you've never made a Flipgrid account before. If you already have an account, you can click on Educator Login and you'll be good to go. So please choose the correct one for you. My account that I'm using right now does not have an account yet, so I'm going to do Educator Sign Up. And it says sign up with Google. That's my choice. You also can do sign up with Microsoft if that's what your school district uses. Your students will not have to make an account. You're the only one who has to make an account here. So now it is preparing my Flipgrid experience. It has some information about me, my first and last name. I'm going to put in my country. That's important because of different countries have different privacy laws for schools. So they adapt it based on what country you are in. I'm a technology instructional coach. So I'm going to make that selection, but you can pick the one right for you. You guys all get to see my birthday now. Congrats. You can put in a different birthday if you need to, but just make sure that the year makes you older than 18. All right, so now that I've put my information in, I'm going to hit let's go. And in just a moment, I am now in a Flipgrid, and it even has, here's how you get started. You create your grid, you add your discussion topics, and you share with your students. And it prompts you to start a grid right now. So let's go ahead and click Start My Grid. And in here, it's prompting you to put in your first class name. So in here, the example that it gives is language arts, which is what I actually taught when I was a classroom teacher, and then hour one, which for me would have been first block or third period or whatever that might be. So I'm going to do English 9, third period. And you do have to give a grid a name. If you want to, yep, so I like the idea of having your grid for a specific class. You can reconfigure for other purposes, but for getting started, that's a really good place to go. The next part is what type of grid are you doing? And we have 3 choices. If you are probably upper elementary through secondary, you're gonna most likely do the school email option. If you're working with littles, my wife teaches 3rd grade, so she's kind of on the cusp. I have a 1st grade son, so he probably would not have an email address yet, so that his teacher, if she used Flipgrid, would use student ID. For our purposes, we can ignore public and PLCs right now, although in a little bit you'll be using one to do a response. So anyway, back to my selection, I'm doing school email. And I can then create a custom flip code, or I can just use the one that's already made for me. So I can do Disciple 1 if I want to, or Hobson 3rd grade, or whatever I might need to do. That was my 3rd grade teacher. Shout out to Sally Hobson in Columbus, Ohio. All right, so we're back to leave blank for random code, and that's fine. All right, so at this point, we've made our selections on let's make our first grid. I'm gonna click next. And it is prompting us to add in our school email addresses. So I work in Albemarle County, so I would do at k12albemarle.org. Please enter to add domain k12albemarle.org. There you go. So this makes it that anyone who replies to this grid will need to have that email address, that domain on their email address to be able to post. That makes it that, you know, if we wanted to share this, if someone who saw this post online tried to go in, maybe they're parents or maybe they aren't involved with schools whatsoever, and they tried to get in to see our students, unless they had this email address, they wouldn't have access to see our content. So again, it's secure, and that's what I really love here. So at this point, I'm going to hit next. Another quick thing to note, I know especially at elementary, you might have like pen pal relationships with another school across the country or across the world. You could drop in their email address or email domain in there too, and then that way both groups could post to the same place. So a pretty cool way we can go about it. At this point, I'm going to hit next. And my grid is ready. I can post it in Google Classroom. I can copy and email it out to parents or put it into my choice board for the week, and I'm good to go. At this point, I'm going to hit go to your grid. And here I am. I've got English 9, third period, and I have one topic in here. So just to go through some of the language of Flipgrid, a grid or a class can have multiple topics within it. And then our topics that we have, like down here, we all have this default one, say hello on Flipgrid. We can come in here and make it active. We can have it where it's frozen or just completely hidden from our students. I'm gonna bounce over to this other grid that I've used with my staff in Albemarle, where we're trying to record videos for our seniors to give them some love. So this is what it looks like on the teacher end once you have a grid that has multiple topics in it. So here I have 22 videos. They've received 335 views, an hour and a half roughly of engagement. This topic, Senior Shoutouts, has 20 videos within it, including some of you who are in the session today. And I can just go down and be able to watch these different videos. So if I wanted to be able to see my friend Deb, I can click on her, and in just a moment, her video is going to play.
Hey.
When I'm done, I can give her feedback if I want. I can record video feedback to Deb if I want to. When I'm through giving that feedback, I can email it. The other cool thing for me is I like to always highlight accessibility. So in here, we have Immersive Reader, and that will transcribe the entirety of Deb's message, and then also I can do translation with it. I have closed captioning, so I can read it that way. And then the final thing that I'd like to do is I can just click this. There, it's kind of hard to see because on Deb has a sign here, but you can see it on the left. There's a arrow, and I can just move on to the next person and continue giving feedback. So I'm not bouncing in and out of different windows. All of my review is directly in line with her. I can reply with text, I can reply with a video, lots of different choices in here. So I do want to pause real quick and first encourage you guys all to either make a new topic or use the default one, and just make sure we feel comfortable with how we could get that resource to our students. So I'm going back to my newly created grid, where I have our Say Hello on Flipgrid. And if I wanted to get this to my students, I could click where it says Share. Share to Google Classroom. And it's going to connect my class. So choose my class. I want it to go to my demo. Choose action. This can be a question or an announcement, or make it an assignment where they're required to do it. And then go. So in here, welcome to Flipgrid. I can't wait to see you. Sign. And now my students, when they go back to their Google Classroom, they will see, oh, I have an assignment. Oh, what's this Flipgrid thing? And it'll take them directly there. It looks like we have a lot of questions starting to come into the chat. Eric, are there any that we would like to address full group?
Yeah, there's one question. If you hit share at the
Mhm.
top right, does the student get immediate feedback on their Flipgrid recording?
I believe, I don't know the timing of it, to be completely honest, but I do think it is pretty swift. Some other things that are like Flipgrid Talk up here, we have add copilot. Eric is my copilot, so I could add him in here, and he would be able to also help facilitate with that. So if you have a collaborative teacher, you could do that, or if your entire grade level team for 6th grade, maybe you have one of every core subject in there, you can add all 4 of those teachers and do one grid for your entire team instead of a bunch of different ones. All right, seem like a lot more questions are still coming in. Any others that we want to hit full group?
Yeah, they wanted you to go over how you shared it with your class once you hit share.
Okay. So again, we can share the entire grid, or really, I would encourage you to share topic by topic, unless you had like 10 things you wanted them to do at once, but that might be overwhelming as an introduction. Maybe you'll get to that in the future, but we would click the share button. And in here, a couple different ways. I know not everybody is using Google Classroom. So if you have another learning management system, like my district uses Schoology, you might copy this and put it into your Schoology class or onto a classroom website or a newsletter to parents. For those who are using Classroom, it is super easy. I'm clicking share to Classroom, and I can select my class or classes and post that way. Did that answer the question for the folks who asked it?
Another thing, Adam.
Yeah.
When you're adjusting the settings for your topic, can you make it so that they're not allowed to respond to each other's videos?
Oh, great question. Okay, so I'm going to go in and kind of remix this question that we have here by clicking on our pencil icon on the far right. And when we do that, I can change the question however I want. I can adjust how long their responses can be. Recently, based on school and teacher feedback, they increased it up to 10 minutes. So a lot of elementary kids are doing that for like a read aloud, so that you can continue to have that practice. We'll make this one 1 minute. Continuing down, we can add a focus. I promise I'm getting the question at hand, but I just wanted to run through the screen real quick. So when it comes to a focus, I can record a video. So maybe I want to say, hey class, I'm really excited to see you. I can't wait to hear about how you're learning at home, or to hear about your family, or whatever it might be. And you can record that video, or add a video from YouTube that maybe they respond to. You can add a GIF in here, emoji, lots of different things that you can do. Continuing down, we have video moderation. So if moderated videos will be hidden until I activate each one. And then over here on the right, I have it on it's on by default, student to student replies. So if it's green, they can do it. If it's grayed out, then they can't. Some other things that we can see within here, you can set, I want this to be live from a certain date to another date, or like mine is right now, it's never gonna go away. So you can have that kind of launch and close out. Here are some fun features. When it gets to a video, our kids can add selfies so that you can see their face at the beginning, and with that they can do different stickers or filters like on Instagram. Not a lot of experience needed for these choices in here. And then we have the option for feedback, which you can completely customize, but by default, it's looking at the idea and the performance of their submission. For your changes to take effect, you will need to hit update topic. And now my students can no longer post back and forth to each other. Okay. So at this point, do we feel like we are comfortable to continue on, or do we have some more questions that we want to tackle?
Yeah, there was one more, Adam.
Okay.
A 2nd grade teacher was wondering, if they're going to be using this for classwork, would you use Google Classroom, Flipgrid, one or the other, or both?
I would use them in tandem probably. And I'm glad you asked this as a second grade teacher. My aunt Kate is a second grade teacher, and she called me a couple days ago and was talking about how much her students have loved using Flipgrid. And I was so proud of her. She's like not too far off from retirement and like still taking chances and finding success by using tools like this. So I would, if you are a Google Classroom user already, then being able to post directly into your classroom for that, to be able to give your students that link makes it super simple. And I would leverage how they play together. Any other big group questions we want to look at together?
I'm sorry. I don't have a Google Classroom, so if I did this grid, to sign in, will my kids just go to that grid ID to be able to look at the stuff I put on there?
They would, and you would probably, I haven't done this necessarily before, but you would want to use that student ID, and it would give you, or you would enter in their names, and then they would select to be able to post with it. And then when you give them access, it would be through clicking the share button and then probably emailing this link, this copy right here, to them so that they could click on it and access your questions and your grid.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna bounce back to my slides because we do have some other features that I wanna make sure we hit. So I wanna talk, I think we have a grasp on how to create a grid. We know what that term means. I think we have a grasp on how to make a topic within there and how to share it to our students. The next thing I want to look at are different ways that we can engage. And so I scoured the internet. I looked all over Twitter for different ways that our teachers are using Flipgrid right now. And we're going to look at a few of them. The first is just a straight Q&A. I'll quickly say that these are not necessarily fully academic ones. You can ask whatever academic questions, have them respond to topics or content that you're doing. I think we have a pretty good understanding how that might work. This is more looking at that sense of belonging and the community aspect of how we might use this tool. So the first one is a Q&A. So I always like to start my classes with silly questions to just get to know my kids in the room. And this is one thing that you can do. Just have a low stakes question. A lot of people are doing like a would you rather, and your kids can all respond to it. The next one that we have is flip it. And with that, a lot of our learners right now at home are learning about things they care about. And it might be your students are learning how to bake, or your students are learning how to, they're outside a lot more and they have all these interests that are going on. Well, let them teach each other about what they're learning from this experience. The next one is student host. And with this, have a student tell us about the world around them, okay? So this is my family. This is my favorite book that I have. This is something that reminds me of how strong I am, even though this is a challenging time. And we can allow our kiddos to really be the expert with this. Now, I know not every student is going to want to have their home shown. So we have a lot of options when we record a video. We can have just a white screen, and that's perfectly fine. Or our kids can do a screen capture so that maybe I bring up a picture of my favorite superhero because he reminds me of how strong I really am. And it doesn't have to be what's going on behind me in real life. Continuing on, a lot of teachers are doing weekly check-ins. I love that the principal who I work under does a daily check-in on social media. Hey staff members, how are you guys doing? And you can do that with your kiddos however regularly you want. And your students can just come in and say, today was a tough day. and you can own it, and you can be honest with them, within check, or keeping it within reason, and just talking with them through it. The final one, and I've really liked this, is a flip hunt. So I'm going to go on to the next screen because we have an example of that. This is from my friend Mari, who lives out in Southern California. She posted this a couple days ago, and I'm like, oh yeah, I need to share that. So her students are learning about Earth systems, and they can earn different points on their team. And each of these different challenges are worth a different number of stars. So you might have some students who jump down to all the level 3 starred challenges, and they're doing research, and they're acting out how a volcano erupts, and they're recording their grid with that. You might have other students who are making a list of 10 things families would include in a disaster preparedness kit. And we can do all these different challenges. Our kids are learning. They're also kind of being silly, and that's good to be able to do. So thank you, Mari. If you want to follow her on social media, that her name is linked up there in the top. The next place that I want to make sure we all check out is a disco library. So in your Flipgrid right now, if you could click at the top where it says disco library, we're going to take a peek through here. So the very first thing that I see is learning from home. If you need some questions about question ideas or topic ideas about learning from home, we can click on that. It's going to jump down to a lower part in this resource in our grid, or sorry, our disco library. And if I want just a quick, easy weekly check-in prompt, I can click on this. I can pick which grid I want it to go to and add. And now all of a sudden, all this text, weekly check-ins are powerful. It's already in there, and my students can start to use it. So right here, it tells me that 4,500 teachers have used this. That's amazing. So thank you to CC Gomez Galvez who added it. I'm going to click add, and now my students in that English 9 third period block are able to have this. I'm just going to click update topic, and it's in here for them. So we're going to take a couple minutes to look through our disco library. Please note that about halfway down the page, we do have a searchable filter in here where you can look by audience. So if I need to, maybe I'm trying to reach out to families and I want to do a grid for them, I can do parent family, or I can do preschool kindergarten and be able to leverage whatever age I want. We can also do it by subject. So we have all the big ones, but then we also have beyond the classroom / community. And that, to be honest, is where I would probably hang out right now. So stuffed animal or pet introductions. I remember the first week of distance learning really taking off, that I saw a lot of people posting about introduce your pet or a stuffed animal. And I really loved that. You can also note that between the very top part that we were looking at and our filter, there are some really powerful partners that they have, including Breakout EDU. I know a lot of folks are using that. My Aunt Kate was knocking it out of the park with that as well. Hacking STEM you can get into, or Epic. My 7-year-old, that's his favorite app in the entire world, being able to listen to audiobooks all the time. Code.org. They have museums like the Met, or I know a lot of people do Nearpod, different state park agencies. So some really powerful places in there. All right, so now that we've had a couple moments to explore the disco library, I would love to hear from maybe 2 or 3 people about a topic that you found in there that you may use with your students. Would anyone like to share? You can unmute your mic and go ahead and let us know.
Yeah, we'll definitely code.org it with my group.
I love it, Cheryl. Thank you.
I just did a quick search just for some math ones, and it's really cool. I like to be able to do like math talks. So
awesome. I'm glad that was helpful.
Book talks and also retelling stories.
Oh yeah, retelling stories. I love it. Thank you. So again, we can get lost in these. There's so many good ones in here. Disco Library, silly name, but really awesome resource in Flipgrid. I'm going to bounce back to our presentation. I know that we are running low on time. I don't know if we're going to get done on time. So if you need to drop out, you certainly can. There is an evaluation resource on the final slide, or the second to last slide of our presentation. So if you need it, if you need to exit early, you can access it from there. We are going to head back to our slides now. And I do want to invite you to respond in Flipgrid as a student as well. So if you can, this is on slide 14, go to flipgrid.com/266239A1. It is linked in here as well. If you see the word grid, you can click on that and it'll open up to that grid. And I'd love if you as a student can do a quick post and be able to see what that looks like from their end as well. So our question for this, this topic is, how will you Flipgrid? And after looking at examples of how other teachers use Flipgrid, how do you plan to use this tool with your students and families? Share an idea and get inspired by others. Find something you love, do a student-to-student reply to tell them how awesome they are. Once we get to this page, we're gonna click that big plus sign to record a response. And it should prompt you walking you through how to record your response. You will need to connect with it through a Google account or a Microsoft account, and I'll put the link back into the chat in case you need it.
Hey, Adam.
Yes.
I'm trying to record and I get this black screen.
Okay.
And it says that my camera has access to it, but it won't let me record.
Okay, so I was wondering if that was going to happen. Because we're also using Zoom and a lot of you have your cameras turned on for that, it may not let us do it. But please note that the link is within the slides. So why don't we table recording a response right now because of that limitation. And if you would like to respond to it later today or in the next few days, you can try it out that way. Does that sound good with everyone? Cool. I'm guessing you're all like shouting, yes, that sounds good. Okay, so we're gonna,
if I turn my video off in Zoom.
I think we'll still go ahead and continue on for now. I will let you know that it is super easy. I know some people who are in this chat have recorded videos before, and we will zoom on, sorry. Okay, so we're gonna come back together. I do wanna quickly touch on some of the accessibility features of Flipgrid. So it does transcribe every single recording and offers translation and text read aloud from any of those options. When you're in a Flipgrid and you see this icon, which looks like a book with a speaker next to it, that is the Immersive Reader Microsoft tool, and it turns everything into a readable, translatable option in here. To me, that offers multiple means of access and expression. So using those UDL terms that a lot of us looked at together yesterday, early afternoon, and it aligns with accessibility best practices. They had entire articles that talked through how Microsoft is building it intentionally. So now we're going to transition to Google Meet. We only have a couple minutes. Again, if you need to take off early, you can. I'm going to continue to fully talk about Meet despite the timing. And if you need to check out, you can. All right, so Google Meet used to be Hangouts Meet. A couple weeks ago, they rebranded to Google Meet. It's a video conferencing tool that allows up to 250 participants and 100,000 viewers at a time. With it, it can connect to Google Classroom. And as we said with Flipgrid, it is secure, free, and full of accessibility tools, which we're gonna see in just a moment. So the elephant in the room is, why are we doing a session about Google Meet and using Zoom to do it? And the question, the answer to that is, it's because Google Meet for your school account is so secure that we couldn't get it to work properly to get people from all these different districts. So the good news is, when you're working with your students, you're all in the same Google for Education domain or G Suite for Education domain, and it makes it so secure that if I share a link that is used for my classroom with a parent or with someone who isn't in my Google Classroom, they won't be able to get to that video. So I'm going to model some of this for you. A couple weeks ago, responding to teacher demand, Google Meet was integrated into Google Classroom. I'm going to show what this looks like. So in here, I'm in my G Suite Google Classroom account. And at the very beginning of, you would need to set this up. So if you're in your classroom, you can just watch my screen for right now. There is a recording of this that I'll be posting, and we have steps laid out on the slides, so you can watch that video. We would click our settings gear on the top right, and then scroll down a little bit to making the Google Meet link visible for students. I turned it on and hit save. So now when my students go to Google Classroom, they see Meet link, and only students who are enrolled in my classroom can go to this video chat. So I'm going to model this for you. Here, I'm opening up that link. I'm going to launch this meeting, and I'll probably run into the same issue of not being able to use my camera because of using it for Zoom. I'm going to join now. It gives me this information, and I'm going to copy this address and try to open it in a different account. So check this out. This is a different account. I'm going to that page. You'll be able to join in just a moment, but wait. Camera failed, not working, won't let me in. And it is so secure that I can't even get into it, which is awesome, awesome, awesome. We love that. So also looking at this, we talked about accessibility tools. We can turn on captioning, and it's going to live caption. So as I'm talking, it will put my words in there. Again, it's not working because I am using my video and microphone in our Zoom. I can present my entire screen or a window. From here, more options. I have the option to record the meeting. So it's so simple. Hit here, record meeting. I can change the layout. And I've read that in the next couple days, we'll have a fourth option in here of having that Brady Bunch style grid where we have 16 people at a time. We also have the option of full screen and some other settings too. So again, super secure, makes it easy for our kids to get directly to it. And now some of you may not be seeing this option of turning Meet on for your classroom, and that's because your district will need to enable that. It's a one-click button that your technology department most likely could select and make this option available for you. Again, Google Meet is free for educators right now, and a really great option when it comes to a secure platform to be able to work with our students. Here's a video, and it's an entire playlist from an educator named Eric Kurtz out of Ohio, looking at how to set up Google Meet and how it works with Classroom. So I would really encourage you, if this is something that you want to leverage, to watch that video, watch the entire series. It's a good one. So there are two main ways right now of setting up a meeting. The first is using the that access link that's in a Google Classroom, and this link here will teach you how to do that. And then the other option is directly in Google Calendar. So if I'm in this account and I make an event in Google Calendar, I can fill out these details, but down here it says add Google Meet video conferencing. I'm going to click it. It says up to 250 participants. And now I can post a link to this or put them in as guests, and all of them would, all of those folks would be able to access the Meet.
Hey, Adam.
Yeah, Eric.
We had a few people wondering, what if you post a link to like a Google Meet that you want to have that students will go to each week? Would students be able to click that link and chat on like a Tuesday when you're not there? Or can you lock it down until it's time for your office hours or class meeting?
That's a great question. Thank you. Okay, so in here, I'm back in my settings. So I can come in and reset and then not make it visible for my students. And then they wouldn't know how to get there. And just the next time that I'm ready to launch a Meet with those kiddos, make it visible again, and they'd be able to see it. Great question. So in here, we have this page, slide 21, has some other settings with links. So in here, how do I record a meeting for asynchronous access? That's a help guide. You can manage users' mics and videos. So if you have some students who are a little louder in the background, you can mute them, and we can turn on that closed captioning like we saw just a moment ago. So these are just walk-away resources that you can go back to in the future. As I mentioned before, the grid view that is really popular with Zoom is going to be integrated into Meet in just a little bit. It might be on in some of your accounts already. It's also going to be integrated into Gmail, so that if you're a Gmail district, on the left-hand panel, you could come down to the Meet section, start a meeting, or join a meeting directly from where you would check your mail. Lots of new features coming out in Meet right now. I've always been impressed by how responsive Google is, their education team is, to feedback from teachers. I've been in the room with Googlers before when they've gotten feedback about Google Classroom, and within weeks, that feature is then showing up. If you want to dig deeper on how to use Google Meet, I have the playlist for you. or a link to the playlist for you on slide 23. And you can go and watch all of his awesome videos about how to use it. It goes really in depth. And I know that there are probably some full group questions. So I do want to pause here and be able to answer them. I take that back. We're going to answer full group questions in just a moment. I do want to do a soft wrap for anyone who does have to take off. And then whoever wants to linger and ask those questions, I'll be here and you can do that. So first, if you do need to take off, you can always reach me at adamseipel@gmail.com or on social media at adamseipel. A few of you have followed me during the session, so I know that those links are working. Big thanks to Eric Johnston, who's been an awesome moderator today, very helpful throughout this entire process. Also, John Mitchum has been helping in some other sessions. They've both been instrumental in the development of this series, as have Pam Moran and Liza from Vassal. They've done a fantastic job of not just putting this on for our educators, making it free, responding to the demand that we're now offering. We're talking about phase 3 of offering these different sessions to make sure that we can serve as many teachers and students as possible. So thank you both. Finally, if you'd like to get feedback, give me feedback, please go to bit.ly/VASCLBACK. There are a couple questions in there, and I've been reviewing all that feedback. If you have ideas for upcoming sessions, please drop that in there too. This is also where you're going to go if you need a certificate for renewal credit. The very last question on the first page is, do you want a renewal certificate? If you select yes, it'll prompt you for your name and email address, and then a moment later, it'll email you your certificate that you can pass on to your district. Thank you all so much for joining me today. As always, if you have questions, you can stick around and ask. I'll field as many as I can. At this point, thank you guys so much for joining, and I hope to see you all again soon. Thank you.
Adam, you're the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so any full group questions that folks would like to ask, or even more specific individual questions that you have?
Adam, I've got a question.
Yes.
Between Zoom and Google Meet,